All right, the playoffs are coming up, but before that, we got to talk about the axe dropping already on two coaches, and we're probably going to have a third in the NFL. We're going to talk about it on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open, and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, watch out, y'all. It is Monday, and the NFL regular season has concluded. And that means it's time for the playoffs, and we're going to run through that today here on Locked On NFL in the Barbershop. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of Locked On NFL and the host of the AFC South champion Jacksonville Jaguars on Locked On Jaguars. And he is Julian Council, the host of the NFC South Carolina Panthers on Locked On Panthers. But we're here today to talk about NFL stuff, and we're going to run it down to you in just a second. Locked On NFL is a part of Locked On Podcast Network, which is a part of the number one sports podcast network. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Let me tell you what Julian and I are going to talk about today. We're going to start the show talking about the axe. It has fallen on two coaches at the time we started this recording. It's probably going to be a third out there in Sin City, but we'll get to all of that. Right in the middle of the show, the number one seeds are sewn up in both the AFC and the NFC. We'll talk about whether or not those teams are number one worthy and if they are capable of winning the Super Bowl, and the snake of the postseason. I'll tell you who the snake is. That's that one team that if he really wants to rear up and bite you, you ain't going to be able to deal with him. And then we're going to talk about the Jets because it is Monday. It's Julian Council. And anytime I get a chance to talk about the Jets that did something unbelievably remarkable, and it's not even good. All right. But before we do that, man, let's just go ahead and get into it. Julian, two coaches have been fired, one in the NFC South. The other one is Shedeur Sanders' coach that seems like he botched that whole thing all year. Kevin Stefanski is no longer the coach of the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, and it makes sense because he's gone out there and tried to destroy Shedeur Sanders' career, and Jimmy Haslam and the Haslam family can't have it. The city of Cleveland, they can't have that. They cannot have Kevin Stefanski, a man who's actively trying to ruin God's gift to the NFL, as their head coach anymore. So congratulations to Cleveland. Congratulations to Haslams. Stefanski's gone. In all seriousness, though, aside from the Shedeur Sanders of all, which is not going to matter now because whoever comes in is going to want their own guy, obviously. This is going to be a lot like what we saw a couple years ago down in Tennessee with Mike Vrabel, where Mike Vrabel told Amy Adams-Strunk, Ran Carthon is not ready to be a general manager. Amy said, okay, Mike, I don't care. He's our GM. He's going to run the show. You're fired. 1 year later, Ran Carthon, no longer the GM. In Tennessee, they fired the next head coach. They brought in Brian Callahan, and Tennessee's now looking to figure out what they're going to do, which, okay, Titans, you're a disaster. Cleveland, who's long been a disaster, you've now fired a coach who's been the two-time NFL Coach of the Year, who did not want Deshaun Watson. Did you notice as soon as he got fired, his camp told everybody, I didn't want that trade to happen when it happened a couple of years ago. He now becomes the hottest name on the coaching cycle, just like Mike Vrabel immediately became the hottest name. Now, Mike sat out that cycle, took the job in New England, and now they're the 2 seed. I would caution Kevin Stefanski looking at the jobs available to just sit out the cycle, come back next year, and maybe things are going to play out the same way it played out for Mike Vrabel this past season. So Browns, terrible decision by them. This is why they're Cleveland, and they're going to continue to be as bad as they are. And Miles Garrett, congrats on the record. You said it was never about going from Cleveland to Canton. It's probably from going to Cleveland to anywhere else at this point in time and try to be a contender.
No doubt about it. Here is my buddy Spencer German to tell you all about it.
Well, it's official. Kevin Stefanski is out as head coach of the Cleveland Browns, and it's news that isn't really coming as much of a surprise, obviously. We knew going into Sunday's game against the Bengals that this was looming, that there was a lot of smoke around the idea that Kevin was probably going to be on his way out of town, and it comes to fruition on Monday, even after his team fought hard till the very end, getting 2 wins over division rivals to close out the season. Wasn't enough to save his job, and honestly, I didn't think that was going to be the case. Here's the thing, like 2 seasons, you go 8-26. Any coach that wins 8 games over 2 seasons is never going to be safe. I think that certainly is fair, and I think Kevin even understands that's the nature of the beast. It's the world that he works in, the world that he lives in. That said, the idea that Andrew Berry gets to sort of be exonerated in all this and survive this thing, when we know that the flaws and the problems with this team go well beyond Kevin Stefanski, is malpractice in my estimation. These situations normally end with the GM also being ousted at some point, so we'll have to see how the next year or so plays out in all this. But I just find it unfathomable that this falls at the feet of only Kevin Stefanski for the mess that is the Cleveland Browns right now. And there's certainly going to be a lot to talk about as this continues to unfold. We'll hear from Andrew Berry, we'll hear from the Haslams, and we'll have a lot to react to on the Locked On Browns podcast.
Andrew Berry may have gotten saved because Jimmy Haslam looked at the draft picks, and this is cherry picking because it's not team building, and go, well, we hit on this, hit on this, hit on this, and hit on this, and guess what? He just didn't do a good job with it. Now, Raheem Morris, yeah, he didn't do a good job, because if you look at what Terry Fontenot did in Atlanta, you'll go, wow, he hit on this, hit on this. They traded this year's first-round pick for a dude that ended up getting 10.5 sacks. So yeah. Atlanta kind of got it right. They say, we're going to fire Fontenot not because he didn't pick good players, but because he chose the coach that we're about to fire. And here is my man, Aaron Freeman.
Terry and Raheem are gone, and of course the question is, how did we get here, right? And it's essentially the reason why we got here is when Raheem Morris was hired in 2024. Obviously, Terry Fontenot was hired in 2021. The expectations for Raheem going into that 2024 season that he was supposed to win. The expectations were that Terry Fontenot, in his 3 years as the general manager here in Atlanta up to that point, had built a playoff caliber roster. That the shortcomings of that 2023 Falcon team stemmed from the head coach in Arthur Smith and stemmed from the quarterback in Desmond Ridder. And that the Falcons could figure that, and they deemed Raheem Morris to be that coach. And they then subsequently deemed Kirk Cousins to be that quarterback that would get them over the hump to being the playoff team. And it didn't work with Kirk Cousins. And obviously the Falcons also selected Michael Penix with that top 2024 draft pick. Or, well, it's going to work in 2025 with Michael Penix. And it didn't work. Those two bets, that's all the Falcons really needed to get over the hump, was that bet on those quarterbacks, was really the bet that kind of blew up in Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot's face.
All right, so we just actually got breaking news. I'll let you comment on that. You go ahead and break the news, Julian.
Yeah, it's Pete Carroll. He's out as the head coach in Las Vegas. He's a one and done, which is not surprising to anyone. I was honestly shocked when Pete Carroll got this job in the first place, considering his age. And I'm not trying to be ageist, but Pete, his best days as head coach are behind him from his time at USC in college and then in Seattle. I did not see how this made any sense for Las Vegas to go hire him. I understand that Antonio Pierce probably was never the right decision, but it seems like every single time Mark Davis makes a decision as a head coach, he does not get it right. But speaking to what Aaron had to say about the Falcons, like, he's absolutely right. And obviously Aaron will know this because he covers that team on a daily basis. But yeah, when Raheem Morris came in there, the expectation was that they were going to be a playoff contender. When Arthur Smith was the head coach, Terry Fontenot, their former general manager, was trying to clean up the cap situation that was there in Atlanta. It was finally cleaned up. They traded for Kirk Cousins. Kirk came in. He got benched mid-season. They brought in Michael Penix Jr. You saw some flashes, but you didn't see enough last year or this past season to think that, okay, that's even the right decision from them at all as far as drafting him. Now, the draft picks this past year, like James Pierce Jr., as you mentioned, like, that's been a good draft class. But when you mess up the quarterback and that future prospect, that screws everything up. So you got the quarterback wrong with Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix Jr., who already had injury concerns because of knee injuries back in college, has another one. So we don't know when he's going to be back this upcoming season. So it made a lot of sense for Atlanta to make this decision after 2-8-9 record, 2-8-9 seasons under Raheem Morris to go move on. And I know I'm hoping that Arthur Blank will come to Chapel Hill and take Bill Belichick, who he was somewhat interested in last time. I think he would be a great head coach for him. He's been one of the best coaches in the history of the NFL. He's a genius, and I think that would make a lot of sense for Atlanta. So please, Arthur Blank, I would shop at Home Depot the rest of my life every day if you come and save me and get rid of Bill Belichick, who's an awful coach in college.
Yep, I knew that was coming. I'm telling you, man. Maybe we'll have a little bit more on that. I'm trying to get something uploaded as soon as possible during the show. But we will talk about the playoffs that are coming up. Number one seeds are sewn up. We'll get to that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Drip Drop. Kicking off the year feeling good is the goal, right? And honestly, hydration is the easiest win. When I stay on top of it, my energy, focus, and mood all level up. But let's be real, plain water doesn't always cut it, especially when you're grinding through long days, hitting the gym, and just trying to stay consistent with your health goals. That's where Drip Drop comes in. Doctor-developed, proven fast hydration that helps your body and mind work better, think clearer, focus, better energy, elevated mood, even that fresh skin glow like your boy. All right, Drip Drop science-based formula is trusted by firefighters, medical professionals, and over 90% of top college professors and individuals. It's all supported by everyone. That's right, all the teams. It rehydrates you faster and more effectively than water alone. Right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code Locked On NFL. That's dripdrop.com. And the promo code is Locked On NFL for 20% off. Stock up now at dripdrop.com and use the promo code Locked On NFL. Today's show is also sponsored and brought to you by Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or jumping into player projections for the first time, try something new. And it can feel like a challenge, but with Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With the high-pressure football matchups every weekend and elite hoops action almost every single night, the action never slows down, and Prize Picks lets you stay in control. It's the daily fantasy app that makes watching sports even more exciting by letting you build lineups based on player projections. No draft, no waiting. Just pick more or less and play your way. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. All right, we're moving and grooving, man, and we're rolling along here with Julian Council of Locked On Panthers, NFC South champions. And I am Tony Wiggins, host of Locked On Jaguars, AFC South champions. It's the number one seeds, man. The Denver Broncos in the AFC locked it all up. My man Cody Rourke is going to tell you exactly how they did it and what they look forward to in the playoffs.
The Denver Broncos are the number one seed in the AFC playoffs, but there is plenty of room for improvement as they'll open up with the divisional round opponent to be determined here. Denver's 14-3 season captured, I think, the resilience of a Sean Payton-led football team, and there's been some highs and lows. The offense has had some good moments. The defense carried the water for a large portion of the regular season, but now when the playoffs get here, their room for error is very minimal. Sunday's win was big for the Broncos in terms of securing home field advantage, but the offense cannot play the way that it did in the playoffs, or else they could face an early one and done. They have to overcome that. For more, make sure you stay tuned. Locked On Broncos.
There's not one team in the AFC that scares me when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know if y'all know, but a couple of weeks ago I was in Aruba. The Jaguars went and beat Denver in Denver by 2 touchdowns. Now, I know that's the regular season. It's not the playoffs, and weather can make a big difference. I don't think Denver's invincible.
No, and as you just mentioned, we saw not too long ago what happened in that game in Denver, who I mean, they're going for it because they played with the Chargers yesterday, and LA is obviously a playoff team, but LA had really no interest in what their seed was going to be. I think that's absolutely insane that they would rather go play in 20-degree weather on Sunday night against New England than go down to Jacksonville, where I'm sure it's going to be like 70 degrees on this weekend. Like that makes no sense.
Today, in fact, it's 70 degrees today. Yep.
Like that's just crazy to me for a team that plays indoors. Like the same thing for the Rams. Like the Rams, like they played their starters on Sunday knowing that, well, would you rather play at Carolina where the weather, it's actually probably going to rain, it looks like on Saturday, but it's going to be warm. Would you rather play in Carolina or would you rather go play up in Chicago or play up in Philadelphia. They're like, no, we want to go to Carolina, who's obviously the worst team of the three, but better, warmer weather. We'll see what the rain's going to look like this upcoming weekend. But that didn't make any sense to me as far as the Chargers go. As far as Denver, yeah, you're right. We just saw what happened a couple weeks ago when Jacksonville walked them up and down the field. You look at just where the playoffs are at right now. Like, I feel good about New England winning that game on Sunday. Jacksonville and Buffalo, you already know what I've been saying about the Bills. Like, if they end up getting Buffalo, I mean, look, Buffalo's had their issues this season, obviously. Like, they wouldn't be sitting at the 6, and they're still a team that won 12 games. Like, that just tells you how good everybody in these AFC playoffs are compared to the NFC, where there's a lot of good teams, but there's that anomaly in Carolina that gets in at 8 and 9. Like, I could absolutely see Denver in that wild card round losing, even if it ends up being Houston over Pittsburgh. If it's going to be Houston or Pitt, I don't think Pittsburgh goes and beats them, but I think Houston absolutely could do that. So, yeah, that's a team that there's a little concern about, but I mean, they've won 14 games. So,
yeah,
we cannot deny that they've been one of the best teams in the league. Them, New England, and Seattle all hosting or holding the 14-3 record.
And I'm gonna let you know this too. The Chargers, they don't want none of Jacksonville. They've been here 3 times and they got smoked. And they got beat by 3 touchdowns this year, and it wasn't even close. I mean, it's like they didn't even get off the plane, and they're a terrible matchup for the Jaguars. Look at me acting like the Jaguars just big.
Oh, look, I hear you. I know it was the comeback a couple years ago. It's just I look at you are a West Coast team. You play indoors.
Right.
Why would you ever want to go play potentially in the Northeast in January when you could play down south where it's unseasonably warm all the time? If
Harbaugh asks them who's got it better than us, they'll be like, whoever the hell is flying to Jacksonville this week, because we're going to New England. That's who's got it better than us. All right. The Seahawks. This is the team that I think is very, very dangerous. And the reason why is because I know Sam Darnold is their quarterback. But please let me explain. In fact, no, I'm going to let Corbin Smith, Locked on Seahawks, let you know how they clinched the number 1 seed first. And then I'll explain when we come back why I think the Seahawks are a very, very dangerous team.
The Seahawks are officially NFC West champions. 13-3 victory over the San Francisco 49ers. It was a defensive slugfest. A lot of hard-nosed running by the Seahawks as well. Over 170 rushing yards, most of that coming from Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Charbonnet with a 27-yard touchdown run that put Seattle out in front 7-0 in the first quarter. And really from that point, there was no looking back. Even though this was a game that had plenty of mistakes, the Seahawks muffed a 1st and goal at the 1-yard line in their first drive, ended up throwing an incompletion of 4th and goal 4 plays later, got no points out of that. A couple missed field goals by Jason Myers, far from his best evening, but the defense was absolutely dominant, holding the 49ers passing game to under 130 passing yards. Christian McCaffrey, 8 carries for just 23 yards, held to 3 total points. Drake Thomas with a red zone interception in the 4th quarter to ensure that they only had 3 points in that contest. So the Seahawks improved to 14-3, their first 14-win season in franchise history, and they secure the number 1 seed, meaning they get a week off before the playoffs run through Lumen Field in the NFC. Everybody's celebrating a historic season, year 2 for Mike McDonald, and the Seahawks get a little extra time to enjoy this before shifting their preparations to the postseason.
All right, so let me tell you why I think they're dangerous. Because they are who everyone thinks the Texans are. And what I mean by that is they play really, really good complementary football. They have a great defense that will keep the game close enough to allow them to work their plan on offense. You know what that plan is? Use both of their running backs, pound that ball down your throat with both of them behind a real good offensive line, and then catch you with play action. And they got receivers that can beat you one-on-one, and not put it all on Sam Darnold, but allow Sam Darnold to have the support around him. They ain't got no illusions of grandeur, ain't no pretenses about who they are. I think Houston falls in love with trying to let Stroud throw the ball to Nico and the rest of those guys too much, and I think it's going to be a problem for him.
Yeah, football's a team game. I know we forget about that a lot of times, try to put everything on the quarterback, but they have a great running game. Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker have been really good for them all season long, especially down the stretch in these last 3 games against the Rams, against the Panthers, then on Saturday night there in San Francisco, Santa Clara technically, but San Francisco against the 49ers. They've won 7 straight games. They've won 11 out of 12. Like, this team is red hot. And of course, sitting at 14-3, they are one of the best teams in the NFL, and they have the quality wins that go with it. But yeah, Sam, he's had his turnover issues. They turn the ball over the second most out of any team in the NFL. So, like, that's just not going to suddenly go away at this point in time. So it's always going to be a concern. But Sam has played really well all season long. They have one of the best receivers in Jackson Smith and Jigba. You look at special teams, Jason Myers, really good kicker for them. Rashid Shaheed, what he's brought to them in the return game, has been important as well. And they have, in my opinion, the best defense in the NFL. So absolutely, being at home in that environment, they're going to have a great chance to get to the Super Bowl when you're only going to do is win 2 games. And they're probably looking at playing either Carolina or more realistically the Rams at home. They just beat that Rams team. Now, that was an up and down track meet kind of game that they barely able to get over the top. But you can't sit here and say you don't believe they could do that again. Now, the Rams have been able to, I think, 6 interceptions that Sam Darnold's thrown this season against them. Yeah. So that would be the concern going into that game. But we don't know if they're going to play them at all, because we could see Chicago lose to Green Bay. We could obviously see the Eagles have a meltdown and lose to San Francisco, which I think would be a little far-fetched just considering how banged up the 49ers are. But there's no guarantee that they're going to see the Rams next week. It could be, as I just mentioned, either one of those 2 latter teams.
I mentioned that there was a snake in the postseason, a rattlesnake, meaning if he raises up, or a cobra, and he decides that he's going to be his best that day, you got a problem. And you just mentioned who it is. It is the Rams, but they need Davante Adams. He did not play in that game against Seattle, and they barely lost. The Rams are my team that everyone should be afraid of if they give their best effort. I'll tell you why in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by BetterHelp. The new year doesn't require a new you. Maybe just a less burden you. We all carry things that weigh us down or hold us back, and therapy can help you identify what those things are by offering an unbiased perspective to better understand your relationships, motivations, and emotions. That's where BetterHelp comes in, making it easy to get matched online with a qualified therapist who can help you work through what's holding you back. I had sleep deprivation issues, pain management issues, and then just, hey man, I'm getting old issues, right? BetterHelp really, really helped me through that, and it can help you through it too. BetterHelp makes it easy to get matched online with a qualified therapist. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. Man, the NFL season is in full swing. The playoffs are here, and there's nothing like being at the game. The crowd noise, the energy, and cheering alongside other fans. Watching at home is great, but being in the stadium hits different. The frustrating part has always been getting tickets, waiting in queues, dealing with logins, and watching prices change right at checkout. I'm talking to everybody except Bills fans. We don't want y'all trying to come to Jacksonville to take the tickets this week. But if you are, that's why the Game Time app gives you the advantage. Back to you, the fans, even Bills fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Knowing tickets are backed by the Game Time guarantee gives you real peace of mind, and whatever fees you see, that is going to be the cost at checkout. No trickeration when it comes to Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time and download the Game Time app. Create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today and get back to being there live. All right, JC, if one team decides to raise up, I'm just going to assume that everybody plays the best that they can possibly play on every given Sunday. And I know that has there's a nuance to that, because there's actually opposition trying to keep you from playing well. But I think everybody does their job. The best team in these playoffs I believe, is the L.A. Rams. And he's Locked On Rams to tell you exactly why I believe they are going to be the most dangerous team.
If your team is in the NFL playoffs, they need to watch out for the Los Angeles Rams. It's not because they're hot entering the playoffs, because they've lost 2 of their last 3 games. They were trailing to a 3-13 Arizona Cardinals team in the second half, but because they got the best possible outcome that they could have hoped for. After they lost to the Falcons on Monday Night Football last week, it looked like they were going to possibly have to go to Philadelphia and take on the defending Super Bowl champions, but instead, because the Seahawks beat the 49ers on Saturday, they had an opportunity to lock in the 5 seed with a win over the Cardinals on Sunday, which they did, and now they'll take on the Panthers on the road, a team that did beat them 31-28 in Week 13, but it's tough to beat a team twice, and also the Rams are getting healthy. You're getting Quint Lake back. You're getting Davante Adams back. You are going to get Kevin Dotson back. This team is getting healthy at the right time, and now they have the path to the Super Bowl, and nobody wants to play the Los Angeles Rams. You got the MVP of Matt Stafford. You got Sean McVay, Super Bowl winning head coach. They know how tight this Super Bowl window is. This team is on a mission, and it starts now.
All right, JC, I know it's early in the week. You probably still doing Victory Monday, and you ain't even dived into that game yet, but that's a very, very ugly game for really a Panthers season that kind of came to an ugly close the other day, but they beaten a lot of teams and played tough against teams that people thought they didn't have a chance to this year. So the floor is yours to talk about the team that you cover every day.
Well, yeah, I mean, the 2 wins that no one thought they were going to have this season were against LA and against Green Bay. In both of those games, neither one of those offenses for the Packers or Rams had any trouble moving the ball up and down the field. The problem was they either didn't score in the red zone, which is Green Bay 1 for 5, or they turned the ball over 3 times, which was the case with the Rams. Like the Rams in that game had 8 true drives, really, and on 4 of them, they scored a touchdown. On 1, they had the punt, and then the other 3 were a strip sack at the end. There was a interception in the red zone, and then there was a pick 6 that Matthew Stafford threw. I'm not assuming that there's going to be 3 turnovers again by Matthew Stafford in this game on Saturday. Like, that's a big reason why Carolina won, because still the Rams are a better team. We all know that. I mean, the Panthers, I think, are like 10.5-point underdogs at home or something crazy like that in this game. Now, Vegas has had them as big underdogs multiple times this season, including that Week 13 matchup, as he mentioned, when they beat the Rams. But I don't think Vegas foresaw Matthew Stafford having 3 turnovers in that game as well. So we'll see. Carolina, look, I mean, they've been on the roller coaster of win, loss. They finally gotten off of that as they have lost 2 in a row, losing to Seattle, who's obviously a great football team, and then losing down in Tampa on Saturday. The real issue for them, I think, is the fact that like they don't have a run game at this point in time. Like there was a ton of talk about Rico Dowdle in the middle of the season. Everyone's like, oh, you got to extend Rico. No, he did hit his incentive and get $1 million for getting 1,350 yards this season, but they have not been able to run the ball the second half of the season. So that's putting a lot of pressure on Bryce Young, which I think honestly at this point in time, they got to lean on the pass game. And I don't know if that you believe in it with the youth that they have at receiver. Now, McMillan had 1,000 yards receiving, broke Kelvin Benjamin's record for franchise record for rookie receiving yardage. But yeah, I mean, this team, they're still not very good. Like they're in the playoffs. It's great. Right. It worked out for them. I think it's getting this experience is awesome for them. But I don't expect them to be around very long, which doesn't really matter. The city's been waiting for 10 years for a home playoff game. It's been 8 years since the last time I went to the playoffs. Had a 7-season drought there in between. So, hey, you're in it. That's all that matters. And we see all the time the home field advantage play out and teams be able to get an upset. But they're going to need to get some turnover luck like they had in that first matchup. They're going to beat the Rams.
Yeah, and you say Emil, huh? Oh, Rico gonna get some phone calls today. Let me hold something, cuz you know how it goes when people find out payday is coming up. Speaking of teams that do bad things, the Jets so bad at being bad, they can't even force the teams that they're playing to do bad. Their coach is the defensive back by trade. That's the position Aaron Glenn played. The Jets did not get an interception the entire regular season. So I thought that I would bring that up since you are the resident Jet expert on their shenanigans. Does this surprise you one bit?
No, because it's the Jets. And Butchko is the resident Jets expert. I don't want that. I don't want that title. Yeah, it's tough for them. And it's interesting is that Panther fans telling me, oh, they got to rehire Steve Wilkes as the defensive coordinator because they don't like Ejiro Evero. Wasn't Wilkes the guy who was overseeing this unit that couldn't get any takeaways? Wasn't Wilkes the guy who's got fired midseason? I mean, all due respect to the man.
I fired him San Fran too, you know.
Yeah, I mean, look, he probably should have got the head coaching job in Carolina a couple of years ago after what he did to turn that thing around. It didn't happen in his favor, and he's gone on, and yeah, things haven't really worked out for him in his 2 defensive coordinator stops. But yeah, only the Jets could do something like this. And I get that interceptions a lot of times is like turnover luck. And if you look at just their pressure rate, it's only above the Panthers for 31st in the league. So they don't get a ton of pressure. They got rid of some of their key defensive players like Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner around the trade deadline. And when you get rid of like Sauce as well, like that's going to hinder your ability to get interceptions. When you get rid of someone like Quinnen Williams up front, it's going to, again, hinder your ability to force turnovers. So, yeah, it's surprising. But if you told me it was the New York Jets who did it, it wouldn't be surprising at all.
Well, I'm glad you said that. And who did you say was the resident expert of the Jets?
John Butchko.
And you're going to hear from John Butchko in just a second because unlike Pete Carroll and Stefanski and Raheem Morris, Aaron Glenn is not getting fired, even though they are a terrible football team. Here's John.
The Jets clinched the second pick in the 2026 NFL draft in a blowout Week 18 loss to the Buffalo Bills, and they're going to need it. They're going to need all the draft picks at their disposal. They're going to need every resource they can get. The Jets will have that number 2 overall pick. They'll have an extra first-round pick from the Indianapolis Colts. They'll have 2 second-round picks. They'll have a lot of cap space, and it's all essential because this is the most uncompetitive team the Jets have put on the field in recent memory. Statistically, this is worse than the Rich Kotite teams. There's no talent on this team at all. This Jets team is unbelievable. They lost their last 5 games and did not come closer than 23 points in any of them. And that's to say nothing of the coaching. It's really difficult to imagine how the Jets can bring Aaron Glenn back for 2026 after this. This is the end of a disaster season in New York. And hopefully with the second pick, things start to pick up and things start to look better. But man, this team has a lot of work to do.
Fernando Mendoza was in New York to get his Heisman. He might be back to start collecting paychecks because I think that's what the Jets are going to take because Dante Moore's probably going to Vegas if he declares.
Oh, I would have thought Mendoza's going to go to Vegas. I don't know. The more things interesting. You look at the transfer portal in college. I know probably Locked On College Football, whoever has got all that covered. But Oregon, they're not really linked to any of these quarterbacks right now. So kind of curious. I know they're playing the semifinal later on this week on a Thursday and Friday because the college is too afraid to go up against the NFL in December, which is stupid. Would you rather watch a regular season game or would you rather watch a playoff game? I don't know. I know what I would rather watch. But yeah, that's a curious thing about how it's going to play out. I know with the Raiders have the number 1 overall pick, Brady being involved, Spytek, I think now kind of gets to hire his own coach. That might be maybe the most attractive opening of the 3 at this point in time. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like Mendoza's clearly leaving because Indiana just signed a new quarterback,
right?
At the transfer portal, Josh Hoover. So we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, Dante Moore, I feel like that's a guy who should go back to school. You make more money staying in school. I was talking, actually hit up Ross Jackson. I know, quick aside, I asked him, it's like, hey, like Tyler Shock is gonna make $1.3 million next year to be the starting quarterback for the Saints, likely offensive rookie of the year. And the LSU is probably going to pay their quarterback 3-4 times as much as that, which is just nuts.
Yeah, he's going to make LSU's quarterback's going to make Jackson Dart money, who was a first-round pick last year. So that's just the way it goes, man. It goes like that in college, but here on the NFL, you know what it is. It's playoff week, and we're going to be looking into that all week on all of our channels. Make sure you tap into whatever team that you follow, and then look down in the description because you can join the Everydayer Club for that team. For just $5, you get access to audio, ad-free audio shows as well as our merch and a whole bunch of other good perks for being an everyday. It's going to be the same thing right here on Locked On NFL. Tyler Rowland's going to have you in the morning with even more action if there's more breaking news from coaches. Until then, make sure you check Julian Council out on Locked On Panthers and me, Tony Wiggins, on Locked On Jaguars and here in the barbershop tomorrow once again. Man, we had a great time hanging out with you guys today. We'll see you next time here on Locked On NFL.